Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Friday, May 17th. It's a live one. Derek Van Wright, Barino Saris, Trevor May, all here with you on this episode. We will discuss Elly De La Cruz. He is making a run at a 100 stolen base season. Helps when you can get 4 in a game like he did on Thursday nights. We'll talk a little bit about Elly's pursuit of a number that I don't know we ever thought we'd see again as a stolen base total. We're going to dig into the bat tracking leaderboards and talk about how we could use those from a game planning perspective, from a pitching perspective. So we'll dig into those some more. And we've got a new segment today where we choose our fighters from a large group of players. So looking forward to unleashing that, because we have to try and live up to the bar you set last week. The two of you called a Cody Bellinger homer off of Jared Jones. I mean, the situation, the pitch, unbelievable. How are we going to top that? Like, Trevor, how many home runs have you predicted like that?
I can't really think of any. Maybe I've done it a couple times. Oh no, I predicted Brent Rooker's 30th homer last year, which was awesome because it was like his last debut of the year. But nice. No, like based on like that way, like with the scouting report, I don't think I can remember of time. So it's the first time.
You?
I predicted a no-hitter by accident. I think it's the universe bouncing out for that Yamamoto call.
Yeah, I'm surprised. The universe wasn't still mad about what you did Yoshinobu Yamamoto last week. But let's start with Elly De La Cruz. 4-steal game against the Dodgers on Thursday. Went for 5 and actually got caught by Austin Barnes the last time, which I think I would have been just going nuts as I was falling asleep if I'd actually seen that happen too. But a lot has to happen for him to stay on the pace he's on right now. He's on pace for 110 steals this season. He's got to continue to get on base as much as he is, and he's got to stay healthy, of course. So pacing it out from the middle of May is always a challenge. But the great Sarah Langs had this stat on Twitter last night. The only other players with 30 or more steals in their team's first 44 games since 1901, Kenny Lofton in 1996, Rickey Henderson in 1988, Rickey Henderson in 1986 and 1982. Vince Coleman snuck in there in 1987, Tim Raines in 1981, and Lou Brock in 1974. The first part of this is, are you buying Elly getting to 100 this year, given what he is showing through the first 44 games this season?
I think so. We talked to him before a game against the Giants, and somebody asked him what his favorite tool was. They're like, "You're a 5-tool guy. Like, what's your favorite tool that you've got in the toolbox?" And he said his speed. And he said he's always been the fastest kid, and that he just enjoys running. So, one of the things that we know about steals is it's partially just an attitude. It's a choice. It's there are people with 60 percentile sprint speeds that steal 20 and 30 bags, and there's people with 90th percentile sprint speed that don't steal any bags. And we know where he sits on that grouping. And I think it seems like a personal goal. I think 100 seems like a personal goal. It seems like he's just out there. He's going to do that.
I hope this inspires more players to go for that level. I mean, we saw Acuna get up to 70 last year, and that was a big deal because we hadn't seen that in so long. But yeah, Trevor, I mean, is this going to become more of a thing?
I think so. I think over here we have Rickey Henderson's totals of years or of some of the years he had, and the way that Rickey got it was he just decided he was going to. So like the thing with Elly is he's gonna run, like he's gonna have enough attempts to do it. Like he's gonna continue to attempt them until he gets it. I'm getting that vibe. Rickey had that vibe. He stole 130, but he ran 172 times once. Rickey did. That's it. 40 caught 42 times. That's a lot. That would dissuade pretty much everyone else if everyone bought Rickey Henderson. And Elly's got that like same tone of voice. Like, I'm gonna just run and run. If it takes me 200 attempts to get 100, I'm just gonna get 100. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing in the world. It depends. It'll be, if he's stealing second and stealing third the first pitch because he's having fun with it. You'll see some savvier veteran guys like pitchers just like act like they're not paying attention to him and mixing some crazy stuff, especially because of the pickoff limit now and all this stuff. Like so they'll get creative with it. There will be times where he probably hangs himself out to dry in some situations.
Already has happened a few times.
Yeah, it's just the way he is. It's gonna happen. But yeah, I think he gets Andre. He's now set his mind on it, so it's just inevitable at this point.
It's not all like super egotistical. I don't think. I mean, it's just sort. I don't. I want to like caution against that sounding that way because that team is actually not that good offensively away from home. Some of the park stuff makes it look like a really good offense, but if you look at their away offense, they're 19th. They're slashing 224, 296, 367 away from home. So I think in that case, you as a team, you say, okay, yeah, Elly, please run. Please get to second and third because we're not likely to string a ton of hits together on the road. Maybe that changes when Christian Encarnacion Strand gets healthy and Noelvi Marte gets healthy. But right now, if I was running this team, I'd say, yeah, this is good for our team.
Yeah, the Reds slugging 363 as a team on May 17th is definitely not something I expected. I mean, home park, sure, it boosts the homers, but they've been weirdly underperforming all season. They have had a few injuries, but I wonder if it's a cold weather start to the season too, being in the Midwest. Maybe that's a little bit of it. I'd be surprised if they were still struggling to score runs to this extent later in the year. They will get Noelvi Marte back from suspension.
And what happens if you have better hitters in the box when Elly's out there? How much do you put the red line on?
I think he's still getting a lot of greens, though. Look at Acuna. I would have wondered the same thing about Acuna last year. It's like, okay, the limit's probably 40 bags.
The Braves are scoring.
They got great hitters behind him. But yeah, they just let him do it. So I think he's got a legit shot at 100. And some of these Rickey Henderson seasons are just absurd. Trevor mentioned the 130 for 172 for his career. Rickey was 80.7% successful. So he ran as much as he should by that career success rate.
I'm sure there were years where it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, it fluctuated. But yeah, they were telling a story in the Dodgers booth last night. The guy in the booth was saying that he was holding Rickey on first base, and he thought Rickey was talking to him, but Rickey was talking to himself. And Rickey just said something like, "Rickey gone," and he just took off. Not a lot of guys like that.
There's so many good Rickey stories. Yeah. When he saw John Olerud with the helmet on out at first base, he said, I used to play with someone who had a helmet on. And John Olerud goes, yeah, that was me.
Man, unfazed, dude. I guarantee he was unfazed by that. He's like, oh, yeah. And then just like
continued with the day. Like it was nothing.
No, sorry about that, man, or anything. He's like, oh, hey, you're probably right.
The embarrassment for that would have probably shut me down for the day. Not really. Didn't even matter. The question I was kicking around last night is how many bases would Rickey steal with today's rules? I mean, yes, the environment was different then. Stolen bases were just something teams were more aggressive about, but there was less power in the game. But think about the pizza boxes. Think about just everything being different. Yeah, catchers are better. Pitchers are better too. But let's just poured over the baseline skills. Let's just say Rickey's on base as often as he was in his career. Let's say he's a 401 OBP guy in today's game because he had power.
And 83, 420 and 80.
Like what kind of stolen base numbers would he put up today? Would he steal even more bases in today's game than he did back when he played?
Again, I don't think the new rules would have made him run more. I don't know how much more he could have run. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he took advantage of every chance. Every chance he's on first or second without a runner. At
some point, you run into the maximum number of times.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe true. We'd have to look at. There's probably some stats there on how many percentage of opportunities. But the one thing that I'm thinking about, just in terms of kind of his style and how he was like the Rickey gone thing. It's think about the throw over rule in Rickey. I just feel like he would love that one where he'd be like, I got you into two. Now I'm actually halfway to second base before you even threw the pitch.
The antics would be really great. He'd be counting them.
Yeah.
He would be doing stuff. Yeah, it'd be like WWE. I did know that last year, one of the big stats going out, I don't know if it was July or maybe July. July, the whole league's success rate was what Rickey's was for his career.
Yeah,
and
it was 80,
so if that puts into perspective, I mean, he might have had 85, 90%. I just don't
Right.
think he would have ever got caught. I think that's what would have happened. Like his percentage probably would have went up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Steven Jazul, that was his argument in the live hive. He would have been caught less. I think so. I think the way the game is played now with the tweaks that have been made, the success rate
You might
would
be
have
able
been
to
up.
estimate it just by looking at what the league success rate is right now versus what it was then, and look at his success rate over expectation, and just like add that
Extrapolate it.
success.
I love it. A lot of love for Trevor's hat today in the live hive as well. It is a good hat. Let's get to our next topic. We've got the bat tracking tools we talked about a little bit earlier in the week. We talked about it just purely from the hitting perspective because, bat tracking, hitters are doing it. So that's where it's coming from. But the other angle of this is trying to develop a scouting report and a game plan that you can use with this information. So, Trevor, what kinds of things are you looking for in this data that you would actually put together for a game plan?
The interesting things are about like the swing speed. I think that there's some correlation there, but that would take I think there needs to be some more aggregate stats that are related, or that like swing speed is attached to as opposed to just by itself. There are some cool bat path visualizations you can do. True Media has showed me that they can do that now, so you can see guys like what their swings are looking like mapped onto like a kind of a grid. With the actual motions of the bat like drawn on, so it looks like a bunch of scribbles, but you can see kind of where the natural paths are, like who has the steepest swing, who has the flattest swing. Those type of things are interesting because they inform how well guys can hit something that a high fastball, as opposed, because flatter swings are better at getting up there. Josh Donaldson was very, very good at it in his prime because his swing was almost level up there. And then there's like Freddie Freeman, who can go down and like you try to back foot him, he can get the bat literally almost vertical and still hit the ball. And he's got that kind of thing I would pay attention to. Length of swing would be important because it directly correlates with width. It would help me understand why a guy doesn't swing a miss or does or does not swing a miss, which is what I cared about a lot. And it could give me even a better idea of what types of things I can get those misses on, even if they don't miss a lot. If a guy's got a short swing like Arias, you want to try to get him to lengthen out his swing because that's not what he's normally doing. And a guy like Stanton, who has the biggest swing, you either want him to continue to try to get longer, or even if you don't want him to he's so strong though, him shortening up his swing, like it might still be a homer. So these type of things, you kind of get an idea. It kind of creates an archetype in your head about the things they're looking for, the way they learn to hit, and the types of pitches they're trying to hit because they've developed their swing that way. It's really interesting, and now we have that information. And the last thing that's cool is there's a heat map now for where on the bat the balls hit the most, which is really cool. That's not on Savant either. That's another visualization I can get, but like the data's there, you can just grab it. It tells guys who hit the ball on the ground more. Sometimes they're hitting it
the top of the ball,
more often.
the bottom of the ball.
Yeah, bottom of the ball, top of the ball. So you can get guys are fly ball hitters, but you can see actually are they popping stuff up closer to them or farther away from them? We didn't have that before. Now we have that. So those are types of things that just kind of give you, you can visualize the hitter before you do it. And that's really, really valuable. And gives you a lot of confidence. Like if I throw it here, he still might top it or he still might get under it. And that can inform maybe even more specific situations where you might use stuff. So I don't know. I would include it in my report, but maybe it's just like a little seasoning on the stuff that I already saw. That makes sense.
Yeah, it is interesting because you are somebody that wanted the most information, and then there are people who want a lot less information. They don't. This will go in that category. Like I talked to Freddie Freeman about his bat stats, just this week, and he's like, I don't care. I was like, you have one of the shortest swing lengths in baseball. He's like, I didn't need a stat to tell me that.
Yeah, he's got it locked in though. He's like,
that's what he said. I've been doing this for 15 years. Like, what?
Yeah, I don't
what
care
do
because I know.
Yeah, right.
Like, he's going to help me. I already know that, and I look at me. I hit 7 doubles a year. I don't need to change anything, so I'm just going to keep doing it.
That was his general point. And I was like, well, I can't argue with you. But there were still some interesting things. One of the things is like when I talk to hitters, I think one of the times when I get the biggest freeze out and the biggest sort of like, nope, we will not talk about that, is approach. They might sort of talk about, improve my approach or maybe talk about some things generally, but especially like 2-strike or like situational approach, they do not want to talk about that because that feels like something that maybe you couldn't even get from a scouting report, or it's too personal. It's like
that's their secret sauce.
Yeah, it's their secret
like, I'm not going to
sauce.
tell you what I'm intending to do.
Yeah, but now we can get at it.
Yeah.
Now we can get at it.
Yeah.
So, one thing that one of the really intriguing stuff is the bat distributions. And so, the obvious one is Giancarlo Stanton. That dude takes his A swing every time. Is there like an A+ swing down there at 85? I don't know, but there's an A swing. In fact, actually, I would bet that little hump down there at 85 is actually location based. So we just had a question about location. Location matters a big deal. So maybe in certain locations, he can really get up there to 85. But generally, it's the guy who takes his A swing every time. Now, Paredes is a guy we've talked about a lot. Now, check out Paredes. Whoa, I see an A, B, and C swing. Maybe even A, B, C, and D. And I find this really interesting because if you go and like, so right now they have over at Pitcher List, they have taken swing length and swing and bat speed and put them together into like an acceleration stat. And that's really important because one, that's not associated with whiffs. So you can have good acceleration and not necessarily have more whiffs, whereas bat speed is correlated with whiffs. So, acceleration seems like the better stat. And then on top of that, because I asked Kyle Bland to do it, he put a count switch. And if you toggle the count for Paredes, it becomes very obvious that in certain counts, he takes his A swings, and in certain counts, he kind of has an A and B. And so and in certain counts, he has a B. If you look at the Rays as a whole, they lower their bat speed more than any other team in 2-strike counts. And so, I would take this to you, Trevor May, the pitcher of the night, and I would find that I bet, and this is my question to you, Trevor, is like, even if you were kind of a lower information guy, don't you think I could come to you with a report that was like, this is his bat speed when you double up on sliders? Or, this is his bat speed in 0-2 counts after a fastball. You know what I mean? Like, where you'd be like, oh, crap, like he's really being defensive there. And, if you, and this is also something like people talk about reading swings. This is that. So I guess what I'm asking you is like, how much did you read swings when you were on the mound without a scouting report? And how interested would you be in a scouting report that seemed to get at their approach from this angle?
Guys would love to be able to read swings really effectively. And sometimes it's harder than others to see. For example, a guy who physically could not read a swing if he wanted to, Zach Jackson, because he literally looks at the ground when he throws the ball. So he he doesn't look back at the glove until the swing's been done, and so he can't really see. And everyone's different. Like
Matt Brash might have a hard time with that.
Exactly. Like some of these guys like can't physically see it, or if they're seeing it at a weird angle, like they can't get an idea of the minutia of A versus B versus C. So this would be huge. Teams will actually do
watching those swings.
Yeah, a little bit, but even the catcher's like trying to react to the guys are throwing 100. He can see it a little bit, but not really. No one really can. You can see it on TV, but if you have an idea, if it's this glaring, which it is, like it's crazy. I bet you a team that might have a few of these guys too, worth looking into later, is Texas. I think Simeon does. It's probably not as stark as that, but they protect with breaking balls for 2 strikes, like. Just they changed everything with 2 strikes with breaking balls. They crush them. And so there's something there too, probably. But knowing this would be interesting. I think what teams, I guarantee you teams are already doing it. I bet you the Rays are already doing it.
Yeah. Simeon has a
just bucketing it. They're bucketing it and they're not saying, hey, here's this swing speed. They're saying like, this is A swing. They're making their own little metric and saying A swing, B swing, C swing. And they're just saying, here's the counts. This guy does these swings. You
can coax a C swing out. He'll C swing in these counts.
They're making it really digestible, easy to remember for most guys. Probably. I would love to know
what do you do? Speed. What do you throw if he's doing a C swing?
That's the interesting thing. It's like you probably get closer to them because a shorter kind of fight off swing, you can get like a jam shot, a rollover. You don't
necessarily want to throw him like a slider blown away. because he's doing a C swing to protect against that.
Exactly.
He's gonna flip it to
tells
the
you
opposite
what he's
field to do
trying
that.
to protect against, so you throw him the opposite.
Yeah. So maybe like that's the time. That's why we've seen a little bit of the rise maybe of the like 4-seam fastball and 2-strike counts.
And late again. That's coming back. That was big in like 19 and 20.
Yeah.
And now then the slider took over. Now that we have the changeup too.
You know, if I think a C swing's coming, then this is the perfect time to throw a fastball.
Yeah, let's see if you can catch up to foul this off. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Thinking about this going the other direction, we didn't really look into how pitchers have different bat speeds, how they generate them or create them by having different pitch mixes. And Ryan Yarbrough is the example we've got out there. All sorts of bumps on there, which I think, like, my first thought is, hey, he's got 5 or 6 pitches he's throwing, and that's probably why you see a distribution like that against him, because he's just keeping guys off balance all the time.
Yeah, this is another thing that I wanted to ask Trevor about is the role of location. If you think you know A, B, or C swing, I think that location is a big deal, because if you look at the lowest bat speeds against, Ryan Yarbrough's on it, he's 9th. And I asked him about it, and he was like, well, I try to keep him on their heels. Everything is moving. You know, I don't throw that fast. But Robert Suarez is number 1 on this list. And he throws really hard, and not everything's moving. He throws basically like 90% fastballs. The thing that Yarbrough and Suarez have in common is they throw high in the zone. And again, we have this thing here where this location is informing the bat speed a little bit. I think it's just hard to get your bat up to full speed at the top of the zone. So there is a location component to, if you think of A, B, or C swing is coming, you want to throw to certain parts of the zone, right? Like is this why like A swing sometimes you want to throw low in the zone?
Yeah. It's,
I guess A swings also have like a location they want it to be in. Like a hitter's A swing likes a certain place. Yes,
I would say that, and it varies per guy, because everyone has like an idea of what their A swing, where their A swing, at least the good ones. There's guys that have no idea, but where their A swing performs the best. And so it is common knowledge that over the last like 3-4 years, high fastballs have been a big problem for a large, population of the league. And the common thing they think is if you get too big, meaning you're swinging too hard up there, it's hard to get to. You got to get the barrel. You got to block it. It's called blocking. And when you block, you want to get the barrel there as quickly as possible, which then shortens swings up, which probably just naturally slows down the bat generally.
Yeah.
So in order for them to hit it, they have to. It's weird. You're like, they're slowing their bat down in order to get to a pitch that's hard and up. That doesn't make any sense, but it's just kind of a byproduct of the.
They're shortening it. I mean,
they're shortening it, and by shortening it, you naturally slow it down. It's the momentum is the important part. That's why Stanton's is the biggest and also the fastest, because of his acceleration and strength. So there's some correlation there, and that's super interesting. I think Yarbrough is correct in that he has stuff that goes glove side and arm side, does sinker and cutter, and so he also has stuff that moves both ways, and
so it can move in on both guys, right?
Yeah, and it's in righties. He's just throwing in. So when you're protecting in too, again, you're trying to get to the spot, which slows it down. You shorten your swing. Suarez is interesting though, because I think it's the same thing. So he's a hard thrower and he throws up, but guys are trying to get to the spot again, beat him to the spot. And so Yarbrough might have a little bit more of a, I can adjust and I'm just trying to get the barrel somewhere. And Suarez is more like, I'm trying not to miss. Does that make sense? So like it's the different types of pitchers, but they're getting the same byproduct of how they adjust their bat, even though they're thinking different things. I think those are two great examples, opposite sides of the spectrum, of why you would slow down your swing.
There's also this conversation of like, this turns it back a little bit to batting, but there's a conversation about VBA, and there's some people who think the VBA is like everything, keeping your bat vertical so that it can hit for power basically anywhere in the zone. And then there's somebody like Juan Soto who is not special by VBA. He has a pretty flat swing. But the thing that is special about Juan Soto is that with this flat swing, he can achieve high bat speeds at high in the zone. So he's really dangerous high in the zone, right?
Yeah, that's Donaldson too.
Yeah.
That was what Donaldson did. That was 14, 15, 16 Donaldson.
Yeah, and I think people really misread Donaldson because he talked about, wanting to lift the ball and pulled fly balls, and like people were like, "Oh, he must be a scoop swing guy." He's like a
Opposite.
Schwarber guy. No, he was a little
Super
bit
flat.
more like Jose Bautista, even Bregman and Correa. Like whip, like just turn that bat really fast, like be able to get higher bat speeds high in the zone with a flatter swing. And that allowed them to take advantage of like people being like, "Oh, he must have a scoop swing. I'm going to throw him a high fastball." Oops, that was not the right thing.
Mm. Yeah, and it's strength too. There's some strength involved. Like Soto's, he's real good when his hands stay back and his lower body goes. He's really so strong there that he can still bring it through. He's kind of special in that way. So there's a little bit of natural talent involved too.
Yeah, I would suspect. Yeah.
I wonder how much of this is an adjustment over time for hitters. Like you think you can get the A swing off because for most of your career you could. You get to the big leagues and you realize, uh-oh, I have to make adjustments. Like how many guys have to start breaking that down once they reach the top level because they weren't tested enough along the way through the minor leagues?
Yeah, I don't know.
A lot.
Probably a pretty high percentage, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably a lot.
Look at the struggles that Bellinger and Schwarber have gone through to sort of develop these B and C swings, in front of our eyes,
And our all-time mystery box hitter, Keston Hira. Like, why were you a low strikeout rate guy that looked like you were going to hit everything coming through the minors, and you're a 33+% K rate guy in the big leagues? I mean, this
just had, like, my guess is just had a hole that minor leaguers couldn't exploit, they couldn't control, or especially if it's like high in the zone. I think that minor league umpires aren't as good. This is sort of a guess. So like if you're throwing high in the zone in the minors, you can be like, "Oh, I'm just going to spit on it." We had Cal Manzardo sort of say that, right? The
right.
umpires weren't so good, so you just say, "Eh." But then with the ABS, he was like, "Oh crap, those are being called strikes. I got to do something about the high fastball."
But yeah, love the shiny new toys that have been coming out this week. And I think the Robert Orr piece over at Baseball Prospectus is one of the better ones we've seen so far, too, where you look at some of the things that happen with pulled balls. You get a longer swing on that because of how it's being measured. So you have to keep that in mind, too, as you start to analyze these things. Where a hitter is making contact actually makes a pretty big difference in those numbers as they are presented.
One last question for Trevor, though. Just like if you were looking at these maps, you would be more afraid of the multi-hump guy than the single hump guy, right?
Yeah. Or I just be like, you got to remember more about this guy. Though I think the humps also gives a lot of confidence. Like it's very clear for what Paredes is trying to do. Like if it's the clearer it is, the happier I am about it, because then I can just throw some options out the window. What 1-2-1 this guy swings, or 1-2 he swings the C swing. I'm just not going to worry about this or the swing and miss as much, because probably on his stats, like the whiff rate's going to go way down in that count. So it's easier to make a decision. So
there's also like different player types. Like, so Mike Yastrzemski has a similar one hump like distribution, like Giancarlo Stanton. Like he's always taking his A swing. You'd be afraid of Giancarlo Stanton probably.
Yeah, well, for a lot of reasons,
but not maybe as much about Mike Yastrzemski. So there's more context. That's one of the things I would say just generally about these bat speed things is we're in day 3 or whatever, and over time we're going to get more context. We're going to get more secondary stats that kind of do a better job of telling the story than these raw ones. It's almost like we got pitch velo,
Yeah.
And it's like pitch velo does tell you a lot. It does tell you about like how good this player can be on some level, but it doesn't tell you everything.
Yeah.
That's where I landed with the average swing speed. I wanted to see the guys that had low average swing speeds who are good hitters and start to figure out, okay, what's going on? And Mookie Betts is one. Marcus Semion's one. He came
Mookie
a
Betts
earlier.
Is like short swing. Semien and Paredes are kind of like situational hitters.
Yeah, Will Smith was in there.
I bet you guys like that though. The guys with the humps, I bet you they get more swords because they try to hold. They can hold up more often. Like Stanton, he's not even interested in chest swinging. It's going
all or nothing.
All the way through, or he's not swinging. Like those are the two options. So he probably doesn't sword as much as I just pronounced the W again. I did this yesterday in sword. He probably gets less swords than others. That'd be interesting.
I wonder where people learn the check swing, because in Little League, like your coach yells at you if you check. He's like, swing all the way through, kid.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean,
because there's this little league thing where like you'll do a really slow swing because you made the wrong decision. You know?
yeah.
And then
Do
the coach is
ugly
like,
swing.
no, dude, just make the decision and swing. Don't do that.
Yeah.
They're not making videos of swords out of little leaguers, are they?
Oh,
Like other
God.
kids on
Oh,
other
that'd be
teams aren't doing
great.
that, are they?
No, I hope not. No, that'd be terrible.
It's
There's
so
probably some
cruel.
awesome ones.
You'd probably see some really crazy ones when the guy swung and then the ball comes in the picture.
That is ridiculous. So we got a new game we're going to play. It's called Choose Your Fighters. You get to choose more than one, which is a little different than some of the things that are out there. And there's a lot going on here. So what we were looking for a group of 12 varying levels of big league experience. So as you can see, if you're watching us on YouTube, we've got the dozen includes Paul Skeens, Taj Bradley, Christian Scott, Tarek Skubal, Cole Reagans, Jared Jones, Hunter Green, George Kirby, Kyle Harrison, Tanner Bybee, Logan Gilbert, and Bryce Miller. And the only things these guys have in common, they're pitchers. They have not reached 600 career big league innings. Some of them are much lower than that. And none of them are currently on the IL. So that's the criteria of who was included. There are some guys that meet that criteria that were not included. You don't have to throw Freddie Peralta's name out there. Like, I know he meets that criteria. We're just picking out of this dozen because I think it creates some interesting talking points for us to like.
He hasn't got that 600 play IP yet?
No, because he spent some time in the pen and he got hurt.
Oh, all right.
But I think he might actually, of this group, be a tick better for a few reasons. We'll get to that as we move through it. So the big question is, if you were choosing 2 pitchers from this group and you're looking at long-term value, so from a fantasy perspective, we're talking keeper dynasty, like the next 3+ seasons. From a real life perspective, you can stretch it out longer than that and just say, these are the guys I want in my franchise because I trust them to be good and effective for the longest period of time. You have a lot of launching points. What are you looking for in this group? How do you begin to pare down a group of pitchers like this who are at different stages of their career and bring some pretty different skills to the table? I'll throw it to you first.
I just gonna use my model. I'm gonna use Stuff Plus, and the thing that I asked of this group is who has a plus fastball and who has a plus slider, and who hasn't had TJ, and that narrowed it down to 3. That was good enough to really make my choices clear. So I'm not gonna reveal those right away. I want to.
You're gonna hold those,
Trevor. How was your process, Trevor?
What I would say, yes, Stuff is going to be like, so looking at the arsenal and the projectability of that, do you have a here we both know it's coming, but you still are going to struggle with it type of pitch. I think that's like gold for a starter, for a reliever too, but like if the starter's got one, you're doing good. I would say, so yeah, the ability to miss a bat. And then I would say, maybe the advancing, like maybe a trend of developing command, because starters are so important. So like if I see the stock rising in terms of, maybe walk rates going down, they didn't have great control coming up, or they had okay control, but then it's improving over time. Then that would be also something that I think will they be able to put together their stuff with their ability to pitch, and then third, see if by watching them that I can get a feel for like I can start guessing their intent in certain areas. That tells me that they are purposeful when they're picking pitches, even if it's super simple. Like I think, for example, Skeens has a pretty college approach right now, but I think that everything I've heard, like he's the type of guy that approach just developed because he was in college, and now he's turned 27 professional innings. So who's to say it won't change? That kind of thing. So that's kind of the third part. That's a little bit more subjective, but you want an idea that a guy's not like guessing, and that that's maybe the difference between a couple of the guys on here.
That's pretty interesting. Okay, so my thought was similar to Eno's because it's more numbers based. I'm looking for guys that have a lot of pitches, but also do miss bats, because I think if you're thinking about a multi-year situation, you don't want to rely too heavily on fastball velocity. So I didn't immediately just dismiss guys that have lesser fastballs out of this group. And then there's the command component of all this. It's like when you put those two things together, how do you not pick George Kirby, right? I mean, because not only does he have the pitches he currently throws, I think it's easier to look at George Kirby and just dream on any other pitches he'll need as something he can probably get a feel for as well as anybody in this group. So he seems like he might be the one best poised to handle whatever changes or degradations to his stuff just naturally occur over the longest period of time. It doesn't mean he has the highest ceiling, but he might just be the most consistently effective of the entire group.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I've liked Hunter Green, and he has excellent stuff, and he has the breaking ball, and he has the fastball, but the command component is not necessarily there. And the idea of, putting in a new pitch seems like it's tough for him, like whereas Kirby's been like, I'm going to do this with my slider. And then he's doing it. He's like, I'm going to throw a splitter. I'm going to throw a knuckleball. Hey, it seems like he can do what he wants with the ball. Whereas Green is a little bit more of a power pitcher. And we know that aging curves are, there are aging curves for Stuff Plus. So what happens as he ages, is he going to be able to be like, hey, and I just added a cutter and I just added this. So I think that's a fair criticism. My process also brought me to Kirby. The final three in my process got me to Kirby, Bryce Miller, and Jared Jones. Those are the only three that had a Stuff Plus fastball, plus Stuff Plus slider, and had not had Tommy John surgery yet. So I was kind of surprised by that, but those are the three guys. And then when I was also trying to decide between those three, one of the last things I did was look at their distance between their sitting velo and their max velo. And I was surprised to find that Kirby and Jones are closer to 4, and 4 miles an hour is kind of thought of as a good distance. It was Bryce Miller that was closer to like sort of 3-ish between his max velo and his sitting velo. I think that's enough for me. I think I'm going to go Kirby and Jones on this one. I do like Bryce Miller, and I do wonder if there's less, mileage on his arm, having been a reliever. But I do have a soft spot in my heart for him. So he's I don't know, the facial hair, I don't know. He's kind of the character. I like him. But I'm going to go Kirby and Jones.
All right, you're going Kirby and Jones. So you're picking someone who was smiling in their Choose Your Fighter photo. It's hard to find a picture of George Kirby where he's not smiling. Seems like a pretty happy guy most of the time. So
that's a pretty good picture for Gilbert, dude. He always seems stressed.
Yeah, and I think the key here too is having a few guys with the gloves up over their faces too, because you got different masks and things that the fighters have in Mortal Kombat.
That's
But
right.
I think the question with Jared Jones, Trevor, Jared Jones as a prospect received low command grades from the scouting community. And he's clearly doing better than expected right now. I think the difference between command and control comes back to command putting the ball where you want to, and control really avoiding walks. It's the way we've always thought about it on this show. So maybe it's a little more control than command to this point. But are you willing to make a longer term bet on pitchers that have command as that lagging skill when the stuff is as good as it is for Jared Jones?
Yeah, like I think the jury's out a little bit on whether or not he can develop that command. And even like I think it's definitely a high. What we're seeing from him is improved control, but I wouldn't say that he's like dotting edges of the plate. He's throwing 99 and with a high ride and a really good slider
inside the zone.
Yeah, he misses spots inside the zone and still gets like he'll try to go away and then he'll paint one in on accident, but it'll catch it nice and it'll still be strike 3, but it wasn't where he was trying to throw it. So there's a lot of that at least early. So it's one of those things like if it never comes, he'll probably be an insanely good reliever. So, if he's got that going, like he could be a 101, just punching out the world type guy, closer type. But you don't need to do that. He's pitching great right now, and he's got a good changeup too that profiles well that he just doesn't use. So I'd say let him use that. But but I would definitely be more inclined to a guy who has shown that he has the ability to command the ball a little bit better. And because like you said, that is so much better for aging than vice versa. And that is, careers getting shorter, the way teams make decisions, like if your stuff is diminishing and you haven't developed a command to stay around, like you're just not going to, because that your big shiny tool you had isn't as shiny anymore. And there is a kid that you just drafted that throws 102. So it's going to happen. And I feel like that's going to be more and more important moving forward. We're going to get a shift back towards that way. So, but that said, like, it's still so early in his career that who knows, he might just, find that guys do it all the time. So, but I guess my choices, if I need to make them, I guys we haven't even mentioned yet that were on that. I'm going the opposite, by the way, on the Tommy John thing. I'm gonna have guys who had recently had Tommy John, so they have that 7 years now. So now we don't have to worry about it. It happened, so we're good.
We're good for 3 years.
We flip the hourglass back over, and so I'll take I think Tariq Skubal, because he is Tarek Skubal. Sorry. He has great stuff. He has shown that he's got his command. He just it feels like he just hopped right back on the horse when he came back. I think we faced him last year in his first outing back, and he was just dotting. So I was like, this is pretty impressive for a guy who's first big league start back. And he handles righties well. He works on the inside part of the plate well. He's got a great slider. He throws. He can run it up there to 99, 100 at times. So I'd say he's a guy I'd build a team around right now. And then there's my lefty, and I go with a righty. Honestly, I was leaning towards Kirby, but I think, man, this is tough. I'm changing my mind now, right now in real time. Skubal, we'll go with Skubal, and we'll go with I'm going to go with George Kirby too. I think that he has he's shown the ability to, like you said, he can learn any pitch. So there's a lot of can he do that? Can he do that? And my answer, my natural inclination is to say probably. And so there might be something in there that's elite that we don't know about yet. And if there was anyone on that list that I would say would find that quickly, it'd be him. So I do want to see. I think he's underperforming a little bit for his stuff, but there's a chance. He kind of does the Yu Darvish thing a little bit. He likes to mess around. That's he enjoys pitching that way. And sometimes you throw stuff because he thinks it's cool and not necessarily because it's the best pitch. so Kirby does that a little bit too. And but I think that he's just this close to having a 1-8 season where he walks 8 guys all year and strikes out 200. He can do that. That's the only guy on this list I think that could possibly do that.
Yeah, it's a fun group to try and dig through. I was stuck on Kirby as a for sure one. The second one was harder for me. I think the reason I wanted Jared Jones also is because of that changeup. I think he will have to throw that changeup more sooner rather than later. I think as that home run problem that we see in early on this season, as that carries on a little longer, I think that's going to be the thing that gets him to throw the changeup more often. It's going to say, hey, then we'll have to see more wrinkle.
If he can still command it, and what if that was part of the walk rates in the minors, was him working on his changeup,
Yeah, could be. Yeah, that's definitely.
He could literally have no command of it at all.
I mean, that Carlos Rodon has a really nice changeup. He does not throw it because he can't command it.
Yeah, the other guys in this list.
We need Skeens. We need the Skeens in here, don't we? Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, how's Skeens not here? There was a whole bunch of guys. Cole Reagans hasn't even been mentioned by anybody yet. I mean, he's fourth by stuff. He has average location. His slider's ridiculous. His fastball is really good. He has a change. What's wrong with Cole Reagans? Why?
I just flipped a coin between him and Skubal. That's what happened.
Okay, so it was close for you between those.
Yeah,
two.
It was. I just wanted one lefty, and then I wanted a righty, like that, just for arbitrarily, for no reason, just for flavor.
Okay.
You know what? Actually, I think Skeens should have made my Final Four. Plus fastball, plus slider. No TJ, right?
No.
Workhorse too.
Skeens should have made my 4. Yeah, I prefer the fastballs of Jones to the fastball of Skeens. And then if it's Kirby versus Skeens, that's really interesting because that's a little bit of a stuff versus command decision there.
Yeah,
I think Skeens' fastball is better than Kirby's.
Agree.
I
think we want to see more out of Skeens. this point.
It's
Yeah,
fair.
it's pretty
Start
early.
number 2 is today against
Yeah.
the Cubs again. How would you feel about that? Getting the same team twice for your first 2 big league starts. It's hard enough to break into the big leagues. Doesn't it give the edge to the opposing team just a little bit since
Oh,
they
Might
definitely.
twice
as well
saw 'em?
see what your problems are.
I think
Like,
3 of my first 5 were against the Royals,
Mm.
and they were
They
real
were
good in
they're
14.
still good. They're still good then, yeah.
They were
I've
very
heard
good in
from
14.
I've heard from like Mookie and some other people that in the minor leagues at one point, I forget which level it is, but I think it's when you get up to double or triple A, you start to have more longer series against certain teams. Like when you have a series, it's a longer series, I think. And I've heard from hitters that you really start to see what the game plan is against you in a longer series. I talked to some people that during the alt site, said, like Lawrence Butler said this, like, yeah, I face the same big guys a lot, but it really helped me see, like, it helped me see what the game plan was against me, how they were trying to get me out, and helped me sort of extrapolate that to other pitchers in the future. Is like sort of helped me develop the like reverse scouting. I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing. I got you. So on some level, maybe it's okay for Skeens, because he can see the team again, be like, oh, all right, I see what the game plan is here.
Yeah, it's interesting the upper levels of the minors go with
That's
those
it.
6-game series now. So then you could see a team at the beginning and the end of the series, unless you're using a 6-man rotation. But that seems so much smarter. Of a million tweaks they could make to the minor leagues, that seems like a pretty big one from a travel perspective. Just
Less
cutting
travel,
that
yeah.
down. Like, why not? Why not play those longer series? Like, cut down on the number of bus rides. Makes all the sense in the world. And actually, from a problem solving perspective, do you actually like having to do that, Trevor? Like when trying to develop pitchers, like seeing the same lineup again means you have to have more wrinkles. You have to be able to adjust like that. I think that puts an extra challenge on you that maybe is a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's it happens in big leagues too. There's a lot of like three-game series, then you get a buffer series and you play that same team again. That happens a lot. Especially if it's like out of division. So that's something common there, and then it wouldn't common at all in the minors. So these guys have to face guys twice in a row. There is a certain level of slog that you feel like you're like, oh my god, we're playing the same team again, especially if you're
Groundhog
3
Day.
times or 4 times in a week.
Yeah.
God forbid. I mean, that doesn't happen in the minors, but maybe in the playoffs.
No, he was just saying the high minors is now 6
Yeah,
game
well,
series.
what I'm saying is like a reliever throwing 4 times in a 6 days period. That rarely happens, unless they're like, we need him to be able to do that in the big leagues. But yeah, you're facing the same team 3 times as a reliever too. But again, you have to do the same thing. Usually, you have those guys you're going to go face. You're going to have to face I would have went and faced the same guy at least all 3 times. It would have been the overlap because that's the guy I need to get out. So yeah, I think it's valuable for both the hitter and the pitcher to do that for developmentally, because you got to start. You got to go to your 3rd pitch maybe in a situation you're not comfortable doing it. And you got to do that in the big leagues. You have to. So, and you generally don't want the big leagues to just, punch your face in for a while before you make the adjustment, because then that goes on your permanent record. And you don't want anyone to think you suck just because you haven't made the adjustment fast enough because you didn't learn to do it in the minors.
And like you could delay your own improvement if you do one thing and you go one time through the league and you're like, I'm good. And then the second time through, you're like, wait, like what's going on? And then you aren't as ready to make that adjustment. Like you have to be able to make adjustments almost on like a weekly level, some smaller adjustments.
I will say
that's the hardest part is like, there's some processes that are good and you got to keep doing them, even if like there's some up and down fluctuation in your performance. But then there's some part of you that has to adjust almost like on a nightly basis.
Yeah, it's the same thing with facing the lineup a 3rd time in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So like I say that a lot about like you're not going to get the true ace that's like he's just dialed and he can get anybody out 3rd day. Just like you can't make the distinction anymore. It's just an automatic no, right, for most guys, and they have to make adjustments. They got to reach down deep sometimes to get out of those big situations. That's when you learn to do it. And if you're never given that opportunity, you get less chances to improve.
Yeah, totally.
And we were talking about that earlier in the week. Is one of the fallout of having more quality relievers and understanding more about the 3rd time through the order penalty, which has been the case in the game for the last decade now, is that you have to show more as a starter to overcome that, because the fresh reliever is just better than he used to be, and that that's the option many teams turn to, especially when they're talking about mid-rotation and back-end starters being out there, right?
Randy friggin' Rodriguez. I've never heard of this guy. Comes up this week, and he takes over for Keaton Wynn in the 5th inning, and he's just throwing 100 miles an hour with 20 inches of IVB, and you're just like, what?
Yeah.
What? Where'd he come from?
It's just ridiculous now.
It really is. We'll take some questions from the live hive. Got a few that came in from Discord. This is actually a question as a follow-up to our show yesterday. Wickwack from the Discord wants to know, what does Trevor think of the Ben Brown as a Cubs closer idea that Eno suggested on Thursday? Even if it's not the long-term plan, Eno suggested that we could maybe have the Cubs use him in that role this year and then consider developing him as a starter beyond this season.
Comment on that ability too. Like whether or not you think he can be a closer, but then also, like, do you think he could go back to being a starter if he ends the season with like 80, 85 innings and was the closer for the Cubs this year?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think that's happening more and more often now. But he's got an elite curveball. That's a good indicator. No one's touching that thing. I think, what is it, 170 against? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's high whiff. 48% whiff rate on the curveball. That's a good sign for a closer. He throws real hard. The one red flag I would say long term, when you have 1-run leads and your average exit velo against you is 94, you're going to struggle with home runs, and the solo shots tying the game is something that is really tough for relievers. So he's a high hard contact guy, but also a good swing and miss guy. So the command becomes more and more important when that happens. So I think he could do the job, and I also think that he could move it back into the starting rotation too. I mean, this is a quality changeup. It's hard, but he's got the almost 15 inches of arm side run that you're looking for. A ton of.
How about in terms of like training and mindset and team build? Like, let's say he's successful as a closer, like
that's when it gets kind of iffy, because then now you're at the mercy. Well, you're always at the mercy, but you're at the mercy of the executives, the GM, and the manager. I was tried that in 15. I went to the pen, threw really, really well, and then they put me back in the starting rotation in 16 in the spring training, and basically at the end, Paul Molitor was like, "I like you in the pen. We need you guys in the pen, so we're gonna go to the pen." And
right.
And that's how that worked. And then for the next 3 years, I bounced back and forth, and we kept getting new people in the front office, and then they changed their mind, and then so eventually I had to be like, "I'm a reliever, leave me alone." And so that is what can happen, but. It's a team that going to need young starting pitching moving forward, and he does have the profile to be a good one. He's got 3 pitches, and he's got the stuff, and he's got velo. He's got a really good wipeout pitch. All of the things that I mentioned earlier when we were picking our fighter, he's got all those things. So
the command though is lagging. So
so it comes down to it, like how does control develop, then command develop in a starter's role.
And I think
it's worth a shot.
Develop the command you need out of him by making him the closer, but they're also they're a winning team, and their bullpen's not great.
Yeah, so it might just address a need. And the cool thing is, you go and you try to get him a starter, and it doesn't work out. Then just he can do that.
Then
so you have a plan B that you feel good about.
Yeah, I think the back and forth would be interesting, but I think about the team having a new manager, right? They got Craig Counsell now instead of David Ross, so how they approach pitchers could be different. I think about things Counsell did during his time in Milwaukee. Yeah, different organization, but Freddie Peralta, who missed the cut for our Choose Your Fighter segment, right? It kind of bounced around. It was starter when he came up, mostly a reliever in 19, mostly a reliever in 20, back to starting ever since, and it's worked out really well.
But he was never the closer, was he?
Never a closer. No, he was a little more of a mid-inning bridge guy. They like to use him to deal with.
They were
some
trying
of
to
the
keep his innings
starters.
up, probably. One thing about Counsell, did he ever? He never had a 91 mile an hour closer, did he?
No, because they've had Hader and Williams for
maybe they just gave him better options.
Yeah, they just had better. They just had better relievers.
I don't think Leiter can do it.
They've had hard throwers.
You want to go back to some. You want to go back to the late 90s, early 2000s and talk about some soft tossing Brewers closers? I'm here for that, but I don't think people want that. Yeah, there's Corey Knebel
back to
before
Joe
that.
Borowski.
Oh, Corey Knebel, sorry.
Yeah,
but
that guy threw gas.
Thanks to THP Knob for throwing that one in there in the chat. But Yeah, I was thinking back. Dan Kolb is probably the worst closer I've ever seen close for my
Oh,
favorite team. Remember that guy?
he did not throw hard.
4.5 Ks per 9. And I'm not exaggerating. I think that's about what that number was from Kolb. A couple other questions here. We got Steve Jazul wants to know. We hear all the time that players and team already have the information that we have publicly available. Question for Trevor is, how is this information presented? Do players know their percentile rankings for velo, bat speed, barrel rate, etc.? How do players consume and use this data?
No, they don't. They do. Like, you can get it, so the team has it internally. But then it gets a little bit muddy sometimes because some guys want nothing, other guys want everything, and then every team has like a standardized version of the way they'd like to present their data, so that they can keep. So it's supposed to line up with how their philosophy of how they win games works. And it's got
to be simple enough for the simple guys, right? So it's like a 3 or 5 stat, like very simple report, right?
Yeah. So it's a lot of like, here's go zone, here's throw to the blue. Some people have like kind of taken the codify route a little bit and tried to lean heavier on the heat map. Some have grids of numbers with usage and stuff, and it's just based on. So guys, I try to encourage people to constantly have these conversations, especially with the guys who prepare them, to get their own, like, make your own report. So you have to like think about what you want to know, and it's not as locked in as people assume it is, but you can get everything on there. Honestly though, the number of guys that I've gone like, hey, have you seen your Savant page? And they're like, huh? Was alarming for a while, because like you can see a ton. It's just for monitoring your stuff. There's just a stigma about we have a saying called keep it simple, stupid. And that is what every old school guy with the mustache pigeon coach says.
Right. And then what's funny is, so I've seen like 4 or 5 organizations internal player development reports, which are very similar to what you're talking about, but like for younger people, and have a little bit more like goals on them, like specifically stated goals that are like, hey, it's spring training. We're sitting down with you. This is your roadmap for the year. Here are your benchmark stats, and here are your goals for the year. Add bat speed, or like develop a 2-strike approach, or what I mean. Like there'll be some bullet points, and every single one of them that I've seen has come from a progressive organization that has a lot of like touch points. So they want to dominate 1-0 counts. They want to do, what I mean? Like they want to be 0-1, not 1-0. They want to do this. They want to do this. And almost all of them to a T have had too much information. So you go from KISS, which is like, I'm not going to give you much. I'm going to tell you something that fits my little, I'm talking about the time I saw Greg Maddox throw the top of the blah. So we only care about the blah, blah, blah. And like, you're like, wow, that's not very useful. And then you go to like the progressive organizations are like, oh, we care about stuff plus, but it has to be like this. It can't be, oh, we got to put this in there. We got to have this in there. And you have a bunch of nerds in the room. We're like, no, hey, what about, and then you give them your report, and you're just like, what? This is a 3-page report to a 17-year-old dude. I guarantee you that guy stopped looking after the second bullet point.
I think it would be better to go blank page. You're drag and dropping stuff in, but again, the amount of work, that you got hundreds of guys in your organization.
I think on the pros,
maybe in the big leagues,
it should be
make
more.
The team. You should sit down and build your report. I think that would be that
would be a great meeting, right?
So valuable. Yeah,
that would be like, here are our goals. What are your goals? What do you want to see? Let's build a report together. That should be with a pro, because the pro has some ideas and knows what he wants to see and all that stuff. But with a 17-year-old, I think you need to have like a three metrics, 3 bullet points, bam, 1 page. That's it. If you want to
focus on them 3 at a time,
talk to your coach. That's it.
Yeah, I think you leave the door open for them to ask for more if they want it, and there might be a handful of kids at that age that do. But
if I have like
that doesn't happen sometimes. A lot of times they just say, "Hey, do this." And a lot of they want it to be proprietary. They want it to be theirs. They want a lot of it's like, I want to prove that my ideas work. Like I just there's politics and ego involved too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if I'm a analyst, I want to get my number on there, because that means that I'm a valued analyst in the organization.
I How many players do you know of that would go to someone outside the org to get their info? James is asking if Garrett Cole, he's been rumored to be a guy that wants everything and has his own data guy that he sends things to.
A lot. And I think this depends on the organization. I don't think that, like, as many Dodgers guys will go outside the organization than, say, maybe the A's or, one of the old, like the Cardinals, right? They're old school. And some of that comes from like, hey, I'm not getting what I need and I'm asking for it and they're being stubborn and not giving it to me. There's also like, sometimes that happens. But I'd say like Driveline, when it comes to like tread now,
push performance, like,
like now, like, and they're doing reports now. It's not like Codify did a few years ago where it's just now it's like reports, like they've gotten their hands on how teams do it. They're doing them similarly, and trying to make it kind of that way.
Own your own data. Like, if maybe you're in an organization, that doesn't give you that stuff, so then you need to get it elsewhere. But also,
of course, that
you worked with them all off season.
Sometimes
you work with them all off season. Sometimes
exactly.
You're like, hey, how am I doing on the stuff that we were supposed to be working on?
Got one more here before we go. This one's from Gnostic Baseball. Trevor, how'd you do in Wiffle Ball this week?
Oh my God, I'm so bad. I'm gonna be honest. At the end of the other day, I pitched the third game. We didn't score. We could not hit. We were just getting dominated. We played the best team in the league. Though they're really good. I was like, oh my God, these kids like these guys have been playing wiffle ball recently. And I was hitting a little bit better, but I pitched. I finally found some pitches that I can throw, but someone still got me for a homer because I had to throw the straight one because I still can't throw enough strikes. But I went quiet. I was mad. I was like, okay. It was a joke at first, but now I'm like playing.
But I freaking played in Major League Baseball. I should be able to figure
last year, I got to be the best pitcher in this league. It's just keeping it under 60 miles an hour is impossible because my brain thinks speed up, like throw with gusto.
Wait, is that a rule?
Yeah, yes. Because if you just said max, like I could throw 80, and like, no one would have stood me. Like no one would even be able to touch that. So it's to keep everyone under 60, which it's still pretty hard. 60 is pretty hard.
They have a gun out there, and what happens?
They have the pocket radar behind the thing, so we can see it every single time, which is cool.
It's an automatic ball if you throw over 60.
If it's a foul ball, it's a no pitch, and if it's a ball, it stays. Which it's hard to hit. Like hitting's hard. Sometimes there's a lot of walks, and then it's like a homer, 3-run homer. That's all the runs are scored. So it's not a big field either. So yeah, I was getting frustrated. I found some stuff though. I actually punched like 4 or 5 straight guys out. So they're like, oh, he's starting to figure it out a little bit. So I am excited. I had a good time, but my God, I need to hit a home run. I had 2 balls caught at the warning track, and I'm like, I don't know how to get the ball out of here. I don't know how to swing.
Well, to be fair, you weren't a hitter, so.
And anyone who's familiar with the whoop scores, I had the highest whoop strain score of my life.
Really?
Yeah, I had a 20 strain because I've been standing for like 4 hours, and the games don't end. Like you play 3-inning games, you're out in the field, and you hit, you're out in the field, and you hit, and there's no rest. I sweated for 4 hours, just sweating, pouring sweat.
What number were you getting on the whoop after an outing last season?
Like I was like pitching maybe 15, 16, but it was like it's only a half an hour long, and the inning itself is like 12 minutes.
Right.
Like, but this was 2 hours of that. My heart rate peaked at 180 in a wiffle ball game.
Whoa.
I was at
180 in a wiffle ball game?
I was really into it. I was getting angry. I was like, strike. Like it was, but
dude, I can run 10 miles and not get to 180.
Oh my God. I was freaking frustrated, but it felt good. It felt good to like be like annoyed with my performance, and like now I want to practice.
We got some feedback on the coaching. I was talking about what it's like to coach my sons. One interesting feedback that I got was not to sort of have that pro toggle, not talk about pros, but just talk about like setting goals for themselves, or just about improving. Yeah. And that actually rung really true for me, because I used to play a lot of pickup basketball, and I knew, I'm starting this in my 30s. I'm not going to go pro. So what was in it for me was just like seeing my 3-point shot improve, like just getting better at something is the point. And I thought that was a good piece of feedback.
That's why I golf. I'm not good at it. I just need something to get incrementally better at. That's outside. Like that's all. I get a little better every year.
Hitting a wiffle ball for Trevor.
Yeah, it's hitting a wiffle ball and throwing one.
It's humbling game.
Humbling, yep.
Yeah, it's fun. We have to go on our way out the door. Just a reminder, you can join our Discord. The link is in the show description. You can find Trevor on Twitter at I am Trevor May. You can find Eno at Eno Saris. You can find me at Derek Van Riper. Find the pod at Rates and Barrels. You can join us most weeks. We go live on Fridays at 1 Eastern. Next week, with it being Memorial Day weekend, we'll go Thursday, probably at 1 Eastern. We'll be sure to tweet about that. So if you joined us in the live hive, thanks for stopping by. If you didn't make it this week, try to make it next week. That is going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Monday.
Thanks for listening.